Greetings from Costa Rica. My name is Matt Rosensteel. I work with Coldwell Banker Tamarindo Realty. I've lived and worked here in Costa Rica since 2008. And on today's episode of Costa Rica FAQ, I'm covering realtor relationships. Recently, I've heard some outright crazy things, myths from potential buyers and sellers here in Costa Rica who don't understand how the market works and have been told some things that were absolutely incorrect. So my goal is to correct some common misconceptions and make sure that prospective buyers and sellers out there understand exactly how realtor relationships work here. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at matt@cbtamarindo.com. You can also leave me a question in the comments section on YouTube or on Facebook. Also, if you give us a like or a subscribe, I greatly appreciate it. Again, my name is Matt Rosensteel. First came to Costa Rica as a Peace Corps volunteer in 2008. And my goal is to give people simple, straightforward information to help them learn about whether or not Costa Rica is the right place to either visit or relocate. Today, in looking at realtor relationships, we're going to cover 4 questions. First of all, can agents only show their own listings, and do they split commissions? One misconception about the market that I hope to clear up as soon as possible relates to that, and we'll touch on that first. Second, we'll talk about how things work in the real estate market here, even though there's no MLS to give you an idea. Third, we're going to ask the question, can buyers be forced to work with a seller's representative? That's another myth I've heard about, or a misconception that many people have. And finally, we'll talk about whether or not buyers can choose an exclusive agent and work with just one person for their property search. Without further ado, let's get started with our first question. Can agents show only their own listings, and do they split commissions? And to explain a little bit about this question, what I've heard from people is that they understand that here in Costa Rica, sellers, the listing agents for a property, are the only people who can arrange showings, or rather, the only people who can directly sell that property to a client. And that if you're a buyer, what you have to do is therefore contact every listing agent on your own behalf to try and find out more about their properties. Or better yet, people think that realtors down here will only represent or take their prospective buyers to their own exclusive listings. And what I want to say is that's absolutely false. There are some people who absolutely operate in that manner. They have their exclusive listing properties. They have 7 condos in this area or that, and they're going to insist on showing those condos to whoever they're in touch with and focus solely on those listings. Well, that's the kind of agent you shouldn't want to work with, and really the agents, brokerages, everyone who is operating professionally here will represent their buyers' best interests by taking them to see listings from every brokerage. In fact, one of our chief responsibilities is understanding exactly the inventory, what's available on the market, and then helping our buyers as much as possible by taking them to see RE/MAX listings, Coldwell Banker listings, RPM, Blue Water, on and on and on, and helping them navigate all of the different companies. I have heard, like I said, people who said, well, I thought in Costa Rica I could only work with the listing agent, and I just had to go around and call those because there was only one commission to be paid, and in any transaction there wouldn't be a split commission. That is absolutely false. A seller's agent can earn their commission selling a property to a buyer who's been brought by an independent buyer's agent. There's a split commission where both the buyer's agent and seller's agent are paid. And really, if you hear someone saying that you're forced to work with that system where you have to call your own listing agents, you can tell them you're wrong. They're wrong. Second question, how do things work here in Costa Rica without an MLS? An MLS, or multiple listing service, is how mature real estate markets, it's the database that those markets use, the realtors and brokerages involved, as their absolute reliable source of information for every listing available. Here in Costa Rica, since we don't have an MLS, that job has to be replaced by a knowledgeable, thoroughly studious realtor who's watching the market and who keeps track of what's available. In fact, it's one of the reasons I think that people need to focus on finding a good realtor, is that their knowledge of the inventory that's available is going to extend maybe beyond what the average person could find online. And really, as real estate agents here, our responsibility is to keep track of what comes and goes from the market and replace that function of the MLS with our own brain, the systems we use, spreadsheets, links, all kinds of databases that we have to invent to substitute that system. Now granted, there is, if you Google Costa Rica MLS, absolutely there's a project underway to aggregate real estate listings, and lots of realtors here, including the Real Estate Association to which I belong, are promoting this idea and eventually developing a framework for having an MLS. But the existing MLS has neither the legal authority, or rather does not, because of the way the brokerages operate here, only a few are putting their listings into any one system, and no matter where you're looking in the country, there isn't one single database that all realtors are putting in their information like an MLS in the US. Instead, the realtor is responsible to know what's available, keep track, and be able to supply you with that information based on their own experience. Next, can buyers be forced to work with a seller's rep? And this is something that I heard as another absolute misconception and myth here. Somebody said, well, they as buyers were looking at properties independently, and in one situation a listing agent said, well, because I'm the listing agent, you'll be forced to work with me as the buyer's representative as well. I'm going to earn that full commission for representing both sides, and you just have to work with me because I'm representing the sellers as well. That's an absolute myth, and if you're ever presented with a situation like that, please know that because Costa Rica is very much an immature real estate market, or really unregulated and not necessarily standardized in any way, you have a right to choose who is going to represent you at closing. Even if you go and see a property by yourself the first time and later decide that you want a realtor to represent you at closing, you 100% have that right. And don't be afraid to say, I want to have somebody sticking up for my best interests in this transaction. If somebody is representing both sides, while they absolutely should be acting in good faith to not favor either party and really fight for the best interests of both, if you think that kind of person is compromised and would rather have your own representative, say so, find a representative, and proceed to close with somebody fighting for your interests. Next question, can buyers choose an exclusive representative or agent, and how should they? Based on what we've discussed so far, the absolute answer is yes, you can choose a buyer's agent to represent you exclusively here in Costa Rica. And that means you can enter into an agreement with them. It could be a handshake. You could sign a formal agreement if the agent happens to work with that. However you do it, you can say to a person, you're going to represent me as a buyer's agent no matter what property I end up purchasing. And really, you have a right to choose among anybody available that you feel best represents your interests. And I've even worked with clients in the past where they say, look, I really want you to represent me at closing. I'm going to need you to look over everything once I find a property, but I'm fine to go looking by myself and driving around and visiting communities. And that's happened for me with great clients who realized maybe I didn't need to go personally look at every single condo or every single community that they wanted to check out. but they had decided, Matt, we do need you to represent us and give us guidance no matter where we look. You as a prospective buyer in Costa Rica can do the same. You can decide who your representative will be. If, for example, you meet up with sellers agents who say, well, I don't do showings with that person, or for some reason or another, they try to exclude your agent from the process, you are absolutely within your right to insist that your agent be present, that they participate in the process, etc., etc. And in fighting for their seller's interests, any seller's agent should agree, but you may run into situations where if you've decided, I'm going to work for sure, no matter what, with this person, there are going to be some agents and realtors in our area who are resentful, angry, on and on, etc. But it boils down to the fact that they're disappointed they're not going to get a chance to earn a two-sided commission or whatever commission they could get out of your side, and they're just not operating at the truly professional level. So for the last question, how should you choose your buyer's agent? Well, first of all, because there's no MLS here, you should be looking for someone with a ton of experience and a lot of years living, working, and being a part of the real estate market in your area. If you choose someone new, you're risking that they simply aren't aware of how things have progressed over the years, what's available, etc., because we don't have that MLS to provide solid, absolutely reliable data. In addition to someone with lots of years of experience, the second most important aspect absolutely is that you need to find someone who puts your best interests way above their bottom line in any scenario. Really, you want to focus on a realtor that you are absolutely sure is simply trying to find you the best property for your needs and not trying to steer you, for example, towards buying one of their exclusive listings because that opportunity for a two-sided commission is very tempting. In interviewing potential realtors, I think it's very important to ask about their standard of ethics. Try and get to the bottom of that question. Do they show listings from other brokerages? In the last year, out of the transactions that they closed, how many were cooperating with other agents from other companies, and how many of those transactions were their own exclusive listings being sold to a buyer that they also represented? Try and get a feeling. Does this person really want to just help me find the best property for my needs? Or is this person really trying to motivate me to buy something in particular because they're going to see a bigger paycheck? And if anything, I think, plagues our industry, and especially in this region, you need to be careful in focusing on finding someone who really is focused on those questions of what is in my client's best interests, and not necessarily how can I get a paycheck. Here in Tamarindo, there are a number of excellent professional brokerages. There are some that operate exactly to the standard that I've been speaking about, where their buyers are going to see listings from everybody out there, and really they're trying to do the best research possible for their clients. And you will also see some places where the agents are very much trying to sell a few exclusive listings, or maybe take their clients to those open listings, those properties that are not specifically for sale by any brokerage, but really just on the market for any brokerage to sell. You do see some agents who are going to focus you on certain properties and really try and just make deals happen where they get the biggest paycheck, and you need to run for the hills when you see that happening. So anyhow, with that, I'll wrap up today. If you have any questions, again, feel free to email me at matt@cbtamarindo.com. My name is Matt Rosensteel. I work with Coldwell Banker Tamarindo Realty. You can also call me on the Costa Rica phone numbers you see on your screen. Feel free to leave a comment, question, etc. in the comments on either YouTube or Facebook. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great day, and pura vida.